All right, we're live. Chris, how you doing?
Oh, great. Didn't stay up too late at all last night.
Nice, nice. Sleep is good.
Oof,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, so we don't have a too specific of a topic. We are going to talk about law enforcement. Okay, so this trying to think of where exactly to go with this. I guess I'll throw out a couple ideas and then you can let me know what you think. Um, so I've pondered the idea of like starting a society, just imagining humans in the wild in like small groups like chimpanzees are, and then a bunch of them deciding, hey, let's get like thousands of us together and having a society. So the
hmm
idea of us having like a society, um, I feel like one of the most important things that could exist in that idea is law enforcement. I know that there are a very small amount of people, I'm guessing you are not one of them, that think there should be like no borders whatsoever in existence and no prisons whatsoever, and therefore no need for any law enforcement. Um, but I guess if you do feel differently, I'd be curious to hear. So I'll throw out a couple things that I think are needed for a society, and then you let me know if you could imagine a society that could work well without it. So I think we need to have borders in the sense of like imaginary lines that the group that agrees on what they're doing says, we're going to call this our lines, and therefore. Um, Nobody can cross it unless we say they can. So there's that. Having a military of sorts that would be,
hmm
if there's an outside threat, they can take care of the people in the society that they're claiming, and then having law enforcement that would take care of the threats inside of the society. Do you agree, or how do you feel on those three ideas of a society?
I mean, like in a perfect world, I would have no orders, no need for people to hold other people to higher standards. But
Mhm.
realistically, I mean, there's always going to be people that are not going to be following the rules. And
Mhm.
that is something that as a group, either we have to decide that either some of us are going to have to protect those particular rules we put down as a society, or we all need to step up and create that society in which we wouldn't need those rules because we would have ostracized in some capacity those that don't follow them. But that just turns us all into cops versus just some of us into cops.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
No,
where
and
it's
I
like it'd be hard to maintain that.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. Like I think we only need those three things I mentioned because we happen to need them. It'd be great if we didn't. It'd be great if um, everybody
Mhm.
got along and there were so many resources that everybody could just get by, and and that's just not how things happen to play out. I think I haven't looked into it too heavily, but I think when it comes to non-human animals, almost every single species, whether they're carnivores or herbivores, it doesn't matter. Almost every single species, uh, about like 2 to 4% of them survive, like past like childhood, essentially, because the majority of every animal in
Mhm.
the wild is just trying to find food and not become food themselves, and live through all these pretty horrible situations. And so
Yeah.
humans have a slightly different situation. I mean, we probably didn't used to, but being able to create a society and figure out best ways to keep people alive, we have this situation. um, I don't know exactly why I brought that animal statistic into it, but I guess there's just something to animals, including humans, where
Mhm.
we evolved with this will to live, and so we're trying to find food and shelter and survive. And part of that's going to include, if we're starving enough, we're going to steal food from our fellow humans, and so on and so forth. So I guess it's just we're and everybody's different. There's always going to be people, seemingly there's always going to be people that will want to take from others, and so there's always going to be a need for a structure. It's just the idea of figuring out, like, would it be better to live in this society or this other society with these structures, or survival of the fittest on one's own? And I think it's probably safe to say that most humans would not do best survival of the fittest.
I think that with survival of the fittest, I mean, this is the idea that there is a level of scarcity. Like so much of humanity has a like either there's not enough to go around, so those who take and can get survive and move on, or I want all of that to control who gets and who doesn't get. And then that turns into its own way of like, you know, creating a sense of scarcity because you now one person has their hand on the knob and controls how much things flow. And I feel like we would have to, as a group, get rid of the people that want to either control things and then also be able to produce more than we consume. So it's like you have to be a sustainable society as well as a society that has pushed out anybody that finds greed to be the way to go. But
Hmm.
as we live now, it's like we could all agree that we don't want anyone to starve, but there's people that already control the levers and the mechanisms to make specific people starve, and then use that then to be like, if you don't want to be like them, you need to follow my rules, my laws, kind of perverting the
Mm.
whole system to benefit just them. And that's, I mean, that's not how I want to live, and I don't feel like most people would be like, you know, I don't want starving children out there, and I don't feel like anyone should be punished just because they aren't specifically following the set guidelines for life. But
Mhm.
I mean, I don't also want people to be taking from other people's pockets. And seems to be that most laws focus on the people that are taking from one another that are at the bottom of that rung instead of the people that are at the top,
Mm.
essentially creating situations where you need to take from other people's pockets. But I think that's kind of leaning more towards like, oh, if we all just had like a base layer acceptance for like what humans would need to survive and then gave that to everybody, and then those who rise above it. That's more of like socialist talking point at that point.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. And it's all complicated. But it's interesting. I think one way to look at these things, like when I hear people say that like borders shouldn't exist and nobody's illegal, that kind of thing. Um, I like to imagine, like, if you just have if you imagine a large piece of land, like imagine, I guess, North America before settlers came over, and then you have like this native tribe that's like got 1,000 people in it, and they have this area that they're at, nobody else is at, and they go like, oh, we want to call this ours, and then we have this. We discovered how to grow food, and they have this section of land that they're growing food in, and then another tribe comes over, or somebody comes over on a boat. It really doesn't matter, but some people say, "Oh, we want your food." And then the tribes are like, "Oh, well, I mean, we're pretty nice people. If we had extra, we would totally give you some, but we just don't. If you take any of our food, then our people are going to starve." So they say, "This food that we grew here, we grew it. We're claiming this land. This is ours." Um, to me, like, looking at this small scale is one of the best ways to figure this thing out, because I don't like, I mean, just to figure out this idea of the necessity for borders, and for this idea of claiming one's area. Um, do you think that the tribe of 1,000 that like grew this food owes anything to the people? Like, is there any claim of the people that are coming up that are saying we're hungry? Is there any reasonable claim that, like, the land belongs to nobody and therefore this food should be shared even though this other group is the one that grew it?
I mean, that one's tough, partially because like for my family specifically, on my maternal side, we have a lot of Nez Perce, and originally being one of the Great Lakes tribes, it was partially nomadic, moving for like seasonal reasons, and
Oh,
so it's like it's a little bit less about like claiming a specific, a bordered out area, but also maintaining an area that your tribe is creating a sustainable lifestyle for those that are in it. And sustainability really has a big focus on like the limits that you put on how much you take. So like adding another 1,000 people to that 1,000 person tribe could put the strain on their area, which in
mm,
that point leads to then expansion beyond or sending some away. And at that point, you're just creating the same issue that you had, but for somebody else. But
mm,
it feels partially like we're looking at it in the sense of if someone came over in a boat and those were the people like colonists sort of thing, like are they leaving their tribe because their tribe also didn't have enough to support them? They're finding another place. And then it's like, you could try to do your best to accommodate those that come. But I feel like that's one of those things where are we creating a society that feels the need to feed those that are around? Or is it a if we can't survive with you, then it's going to be us versus them mentality?
mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and I feel like there has been the feeling of necessity for borders previously because of that either a scarcity level or not being in an in group, especially when it comes to tribes versus people on boats. Boats bringing disease and other things that had not fared well for the native folk. But I mean, modernly, we can produce so much more than we could then post revolutionary, like as soon as we figured out farming, as soon as we figured out how to farm and then manufacturing and the industrial complex that has taken the place of our production lines now. It's like I think that 1,000 people capacity to make more food now would then just mean that we could take on more of those people and have we should be more in the boat of we would just feed the new people, the newcomers, take care of
Yeah,
them.
yeah. Yeah, and it gets complicated because once you turn that thousand into like millions, and then you're deciding like how much extra do we have, how much room is there. Um,
Hmm.
like me personally, I don't have a stance on immigration just because it's so complex. Like the numbers are so wild. Like I'll hear that there's countries like Scotland and Japan where it's almost impossible to become a citizen there. Like they just don't accept new people. And I don't know if there's certain reasons for that, where if there was some kind of a development change, they would, and it's just that they don't have the resources for it now. But like they'll accept zero people, and then places like the US and there might be some others, millions of people will come in per year, and I don't have an answer for this. Like, I don't have a thought that like a million is too few or too many. And I don't have a
Hmm.
thought that even like, 20 million is too many. But like, in the same sense that other countries might say, like, we have our resources, we have our people, there's a certain amount of people on unemployment. Um, so if jobs open up, we want it for the people that are already here. So we're going to not take any more immigrants or something like that. Like that seems reasonable to me. But also, if there's some argument that there's room to bring in people and we can help people by bringing them in and making them legal citizens, that seems reasonable too. Like, I don't have any feeling like because I was born here, like I'm owed any magical thing that people that were born in maybe a bad country with bad situation or something. isn't owed. It's kind of like that thousand tribe versus thousand tribe thing where it's going to come down to what resources are available. I would love to help everyone. So anyways, I don't know if this is a topic that you know much about, or if you have a stance on like where a cutoff should be when it comes to like US immigration.
I don't have a cutoff, honestly. I'm all for as many people as we can get into the country, just snag them up, get them here ASAP.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Primarily, it's less about like I'm not worried about having not enough having like I'm not worried that we're going to be running out of resources or like all this additional people is going to break our system. I think
Are
the
you,
main issue is. Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to ask, just to clarify if I'm understanding you right. Are you currently convinced that we can and therefore should bring in as many people, or are you saying that with your lack of knowledge on the topic, that if we are capable of bringing in as many, then bring in as many?
I'm saying that my current understanding of the situation, as many as we can, get as many people
Oh, okay.
here as quickly as possible.
Okay, interesting. And what is the reason behind that?
Every one of them can help us become an industrial power as soon as possible. Like we've shipped so many and like manufacturing jobs and everything away, as well as we have so many jobs that are currently not being filled in America by
Mm,
Americans. And every single immigrant has a chance to fill those positions. And
okay.
giving them a fast track to citizenship just means more taxpayers, more hands, bigger boat. The main issue I have with like the idea that they're going to take our jobs is primarily that of education. Most of America that seems to be worried about foreigners taking our jobs aren't people worried about, CEOs aren't worried about it. People that have master's degrees aren't worried about it. But like you drive a forklift and they can hire someone cheaper to drive that forklift. Right? They can hire someone cheaper to mine some coal. They can hire someone cheaper to work the farm. Like that's just it's from a business standpoint, it just becomes a no-brainer. Pick the person that costs the least, increase your bottom line. But I think it's if the people that would be getting their jobs replaced, or same with like industries that are slowly dying, coal in that case. So many coal towns are dying as well. But like anyone that would get their job replaced by an immigrant or are in a dying business or in a dying industry, I think those are the people that would we need to focus on providing them free education because then you're making space at the bottom of the ladder for immigrants, which then increases our tax revenue, which then increases our productivity. But giving those other people social mobility with higher education, but also opening up additional jobs that would need higher education. Like AI is not going away. We need more people in tech. We need more people that know more things. We need more teachers. We need more higher educated people. And then because like America, we can export all sorts of natural resources or manufactured goods, but we also need to be exporting knowledge and understanding. Like, if
Mm,
we're not staying at the forefront of those things, like by just educating more of our population, creating a larger base of people that are smarter, are more in tune with what's going on with the world, that keeps us viable as a country in not just the physical things you can buy, but also the things you can know, the things you can understand, scientific research, exploration, all those things, which then could lead to more prosperity because now we have better technology, you know, better
hmm.
spaces, hopefully people with better understandings of economics by
Yeah,
sending things
yeah.
more.
Yeah, no, and it's so complicated, like kind of like you were talking about earlier, where now versus the past, we have the ability to grow so much more food and feed so many more people. And right,
Mhm.
now you're talking about technology and innovation. And I hear from both sides, like I'll hear like, oh, if we tax the wealthy too much, it's going to take away that incentive for innovation, where the wealth that exists now and the innovation that exists now is partially because of not putting a limit on how much money one can have. And so people that strive to be millionaires or billionaires are going to like keep working towards all this innovation, which is going to benefit us. And if they were, if they were just given some basic, like, I don't know, like I guess just an inability to make money, then maybe they wouldn't have this innovation, or the innovation wouldn't happen through them. And I'm not making any claim because I don't know if that's accurate. That just it seems to be both sides have concerns in those regards, which I find I'll just say interesting. But
Mhm.
what I do want to ask you on what you were just saying about bringing in as many as possible from your understanding, it would be a benefit. I, I am curious because you were saying that they would come here and they'd work. Would you say that it would be reasonable or potentially might be reasonable to let people know like you can come in here, but it's going to be a trial period where you don't become a citizen till you show that you're not going to commit crimes and that you're going to work. And then after like 1 year, if you have uh, gotten a job and maintained that job and have no criminal anything, some kind of thing like that. And then if they do it, they do it. But like if there are people that are just here, they aren't working at all, and they are just going to, I guess, use a system of some kind. Let's leave out the committing any crimes. Let's just say
Mhm.
that some 30-year-old without a family just wants to leave, let's say Mexico or something. Um, let's say Canada to make there be no racial connection, just just in
Yeah.
case. Because anyways. Okay, so a 30-year-old comes from Canada, and then they just come here, and then in the same way that somebody that's 30 that's here that doesn't have a job might, I don't know, you get some government assistance or whatever. Like a year goes by and they never even attempted to get a job, but they're using welfare or whatever. Would you say that there should be something in place to weed out people like that, or is that not a concern of yours?
I mean, funny enough, I knew a Canadian that came here. She was 36. We did search and rescue together.
Oh,
And
awesome.
yeah, it was a good time. It was really great. But that doesn't count for like employment for search and rescue
Oh, okay.
for Washington State. And like we had a great time. She was lovely. She got deported because her visas
Mm.
ran out and she
Oh,
had to go
okay.
back to Canada, which I was like, it was kind of funny because I was like, I didn't know that could happen to Canadians. I had the mindset at the time of like, yeah, like, I mean, you're just like to the north of us. Literally, she was from Vancouver. And it's just like,
Mm.
they sent her, 8 hours north. It's like, I thought it was very funny at the time, but it was just one of those things where, I mean, she also would check in regularly and was like, yeah, I wasn't able to succeed. And that
Mm.
was interesting. But I think for that, I mean, if it's a trial period, it's a 1 year that on their own, a lot of people would not succeed at that. I mean, we can think of many people that may or may not be productive members of society, and that's hard in its own way. But
Mm.
I would just provide like a job corps. I would say expand something similar to Job Corps or some way that provides more avenues or at least more information on jobs, different areas, different places. if you're in an area that's already saturated, here's a list of other cities that we can get you to find you gainful employment, something that's easy info, and it may be like a person, similar to how like DHS does a similar thing for helping people with, you know, with food stamps and stuff like that, where they'll have like, oh, here's some jobs information, or this is ways you can find employment. I think if we gave people just like more information, then it would decrease the amount of people. But I still think there would be some people. Not everyone is built for the society we live in,
Yeah.
and I think that's where it takes the hard turn of you've been unable to do so far. Then what do we do? Do we deport them?
Mhm.
Do we have an additional place for people to go if they were unable to assimilate to any of the things that we have? And for me, I would have to see the numbers to really have a fully formed opinion. Because if it's 10%, whatever, I don't really care. If it's
Mhm.
50%, then I feel like the system that we've created doesn't really work.
Yeah, yeah, because it's kind of complicated. Like, I'm not sure if you're currently working, but like if like our tax money, like so we work and then our taxes come out, and then some of that money goes to give money to people that potentially that choose not to work. Um,
Mhm.
Now it already feels weird if it's people that are citizens here, or maybe it does to you. I don't know. But uh, but the idea of people coming in without, you know, I guess it's really complicated. Like it's kind of like healthcare. Like part of me
Mhm.
wants to have a universal healthcare, but part of me doesn't want any of my tax dollars to go towards like um chemo for a lifetime smoker that chose to smoke their whole life. Like
Mhm.
I want my tax dollars to go towards somebody that got like in an accident where nobody intended anything, nobody was doing anything ridiculous, but like there was just an accident, somebody got their fingers cut off. Like I want them to be able to get their fingers like sewed back on and not have to like worry if they have insurance and that kind of thing. Or if somebody like gets a cold or gets a fever, has to go get checked up, get some meds. It's like, sure, I'm cool with all that being covered. But somebody who is intentionally smoking cigarettes or letting themselves like be like 500 pounds overweight or something like that, um like I wouldn't want my tax dollars going towards that. So I think the same thing would go for when I think of like say food stamps. Like I want like a single mother to be able to get food for her and her children. I don't know if I want my tax dollars to go towards them buying like candy bars and soda. And
Mhm.
so I guess when I think of the idea of people coming in from another country, I think like I personally want to help everyone. When I walk outside and it's raining and there's worms on the street, I move them to the dirt because I see them moving around and I'm like, I want to help these things. But when I think of like the big picture and what countries are capable of and how things are going to affect things overall, I just think like, sure, if I was a billionaire, almost all the things I want to do. Like, when somebody asks you that question, like if you won the lottery, what would you do? I have like a list of things, and almost all of them involve helping people. Like I want to my top thing is I want to like own a thrift shop, like a Goodwill type thing, but
Mhm.
where everybody just brings in their stuff like they do with Goodwill, but instead of charging insane amounts, it's like everything is like the cheapest thing in the world or free, and then people can just keep swapping out, bring in things you don't need, and then other people that are in need of things come get it. That's what I would do if I had money. I would like buy a huge piece of land and grow all the berries and all the fruit trees, and I would let anybody that needs to, whether they have money or not, but especially people that are in need, come and just get all the fruit. And like I would feel like I am fulfilling like what I want in life in helping people in this way. That being said, not being a millionaire or billionaire and being able to do what I can do, I don't, I do have my concerns on where my tax dollars would go or what I could do with extra money I might have. Like I'll take some like bananas and stuff to some homeless people, but I mean, I kind of barely get by on my own, so I don't really have like the type of money to donate places to like charities or anything.
Hmm.
And so I guess when I just think of like what a country is capable of. Again, I don't have a stance. Like I don't have a stance that says let 1 million in per year or like have it be half that or double that or whatever. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
imagine if there are concerns. So like it's really sad to imagine an actual human. Like we're talking about a hypothetical 30-year-old from Canada, but like if we saw them in person and talked to this person, we'd go like, oh, I don't want a sad thing to happen to this person. But if they come here and then they go a whole year not working, which I think your friend is a different situation. If somebody comes here and can figure out how to get by and what they do is a search and rescue, that sounds awesome. Um, but somebody that just would come here and potentially like mooch off the government, which would be mooching off of us taxpayers. I think I don't even have a strong understanding of which types of taxes, whether it's federal or state, or how that works for government assistance. But something tells me that even though that's a human and it's a human that I would help up if they fell down, in the long run with the big picture, I might go like, oh, if they tried out for a year, never got a job, and they intentionally just didn't get a job, didn't want to work, but were hoping that they could get government assistance or something like that. My first instinct is like, oh no, like definitely send them back. So I guess what are your thoughts on that?
I think that it's like creating it at the micro scale. I can feel good or bad about so many things. And I think that on a macro scale, though, I'm more concerned on the majority. Like if the system is providing food for the majority of people that need it, and then there's a few people that are abusing it, I don't care. Let those few people abuse it. I'm not trying to like it's the systems that we have in place that provide like some level of substance, like this the same idea like candy bar versus fresh fruit sort of thing. I don't really
Mhm.
care, partially because some areas don't have the same access to fresh foods. Most
Mhm.
corporations are trying to make sugary things be the cheapest possible thing to stretch your dollar, to create a level of addiction to sugary substances, to make
Yeah.
people sicker. So it increases the amount that you're being abused by medical and dental and all these other things, creating an ecosystem of deteriorating people that then feed all these other industries. So it's like we already have the sickness in our country that creates so many, like if we were a healthy population that had good hygiene dentally and physically, and we all had a focus on eating fresh foods, that we create an abundance so much so that we throw away so much fresh foods, but like that could be feeding so many people. But if that was the way it would work, we'd have so many industries would dry up or disappear, or there'd be a lot of billionaires with one less zero in their bank account. And that's not
Mhm.
their goal. Their goal is to make big number biggest.
Yeah.
Like there isn't anyone that crosses those lines that isn't trying to make their wallets the fattest wallet around. And that then creates sick people that die, in which of course then trickles down to starving children that die and so on and so forth. But that's where I'm like, if it's 50% of the system's not working, if 50% are failing to succeed, the system's not working, if 50% are scheming the system successfully, like
Mhm.
that's where it just comes down to. Like food stamps, when we give more to food stamps, there's less starving children. Less starving children do better in school, they get better education. We have a more intelligent population. Intelligent population makes more money. And that's where I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
big net, more fish.
Mhm.
That's where I'm like, if it's one 30-year-old Canadian that's not doing great, I mean, figure out a way to make it work, or accept the fact that in a society we won't all be productive. And I
Mm.
think that's also a different mindset where it's like, I mean, I will continue work if I see someone that lives on a couch and just sits around all day, doesn't do anything except for consume food, watch TV. That's not going to make me feel bad for going to work each day and continuing my job. My job's a
Mm.
little odd in that sense where it's like if we didn't even have money tomorrow, my job would still be necessary.
Mm.
Um, and so even if like we completely remove the idea of value in the form of dollars per person or everything is free, but to get the most, like you can't get a Bugatti for free, but if you want that, you can do certain things to get it. But then like the base value of everything, all water's free, all food's free, all housing's free, electricity's
Mm.
free. I would still have my job, what I'm currently doing, because like there's things that still would exist that people would have to do to keep the world running in a way where everything is free. And then
Yeah.
I personally would continue doing that. Like if the threat of starvation was removed from the reason of working and the threat of homelessness was removed from working, I'd still have a job. I'd still go out and do things. And if anything, put some of my time more towards expanding my understanding of knowledge and things and daring to overextend myself more, knowing that if it doesn't work out, I have a place to retreat to where I can still be productive, but are maintaining the house over, the home over my head and the food in my
Yeah.
kitchens.
Yeah.
But
No, I'm totally. Yeah,
I
yeah, I'm
think that's
totally
where
with
the
you. Sorry, sorry.
I,
Yeah, go ahead
I
and
think
finish. Yeah.
I think that's where the like the productivity question comes in of like if there isn't a bottom run, what will make people want to not be on it? Or
Mm.
the idea of if we don't have some people suffering showing us the bottom, but some people wealthy to show us the top, what are we going to strive for? What's going to drive in like innovation?
Mm.
Where I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm particularly I feel like there's good people out there that even unprompted are going to try to innovate. They're not doing it
That's
for the
true.
money, they're doing it for the betterment of people. And I feel like that might be maybe it's slower, but that's okay. We have conquered most diseases. We produce so much. I don't think that there's no real dire need to find penicillin 2.0.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And like the idea of UBI, I'm a huge fan of it. I like the idea of people because I think I think a lot of people look at other people and they go, "Oh, I want this thing." And in a lot of those cases, it's not things we need. Like the idea of going on a vacation, that's cool. Like the invention of planes, being able to like go to Hawaii, that's a fun idea, but nobody's owed it. Nobody like deserves it. It's just like if it works out, it works out. And
Mhm.
yeah, a world where nobody had to worry about food or shelter and everything else was just like, oh, okay, if you get this like side job, you might make some more money and then you could get these fancy video games or go on vacation or whatever. But even if you didn't work a job at all, you could eat perfectly healthy, you could be sheltered, and then if you want to just use the rest of your life to, play guitar or go on hikes or it doesn't matter what it is. It could be something that we might view as nice or not nice or whatever. I'm all about that. So don't get me wrong. When I think of the idea of potential immigrants that wouldn't be working and it would be only if it were a drain on society in a way that would take away from that possibility for the UBI or having the right amount of food and whatnot. So if it didn't take away from that, do that for every single human and then start figuring out a way to do that for for animals too. Um it's just if we're not there yet, then there's a concern I have. And as far as I want to go back to the food stamp thing real quick. I get that it's complicated. There are like food deserts and whatnot, and I don't know what the right answer for that is. But one thing that popped into my head when you were talking about the sugary foods and whatnot, I would say that processed over sugared foods, like let's just say soda, ice cream, cake, donuts, and then candy bars. So we don't need
Mhm.
to worry about like if there's processed stuff that has some sugar in it, like Cheez-Its or whatever. But just a basic level of looking at things that we can say basically everything in this category is not healthy. Not
Mhm.
only is none of that anything that would be nutritious, so therefore having that not allowed with food stamps, I think would be fine. But when you bring up the idea of like food deserts and whatnot, what the food that is there because that's what people are addicted to, like you're talking about, and and that's what the people are buying. That's what the companies will make money off of. So that's what they have there. But the companies make money off of what's purchased with food stamps. So if you eliminate the ability to purchase the things that I just listed, my guess is that all that companies will start providing other things, and some of it might be healthy and some of it might be like mildly healthy. I mean, you'll start having less candy bars purchased and more unhealthy things like pizza pockets or something. um
Mhm.
but I don't think that because it won't be perfect that it's not worth doing. I essentially, it seems like it's getting towards what you want anyways, which would be having everybody fed doesn't mean having everybody having like caviar and the top tier type of steak or something. But also not only does it not mean that people need to have the fanciest, most expensive foods, but it also doesn't mean that people need to have the unhealthy foods. um
Mhm.
so yeah, anyways, I don't know. I'm a huge proponent for like eliminating things like soda. So if there was a vote and it was left up to the citizens of Oregon, because me and you happen to be in Oregon,
Mhm.
and it was just like if you vote yes, then it's going to make sugary soda not available on food stamps. If you vote no, then it's going to make them continue to be available or whatever. Um, would you vote on that? Would you view it as you don't care either way, or would you have a strong stance on that in Oregon?
I think that where I am now and where the world is now, I don't care. They can have their soda. I'm like the the comparison to like a 2 liter soda versus a gallon of water sort of thing. I'm just like I don't really care. The cost difference is not that drastic in most places, specifically in Oregon, and I'm just like it's whatever. I don't let them have whatever they're going to get. I want more choice for more people, more, more, more. But at a maximal point, I would be against just having soda available at all. Just,
Oh yeah.
I think it's in, I think it's in that same vein as like, all these things that were introduced in this idea of creating a market. Like we don't need soda.
Hmm.
There's no
Yeah.
there's no value to having soda as an option for anyone to drink. And the companies that forced soda to be the thing, like when cigarette companies started getting into health foods and started providing food sciences of how to get people addicted to things
Hmm.
and like the history behind like what would be a good way, what's a good pairing for a fast food burger? Soda. The citrusy or carbonated water mixed with sugars and stuff, juxtaposed to a fatty burger. It's like it's creating a way to maximize the amount of burgers we're going to be eating. And that's already an evil place. That's a bad place to be coming from. So I'm like, right now, have your soda. I don't really care. It's sure it's not great, but if we're going to get rid of it, I just say whole hog, get rid of soda altogether.
Okay. Well, okay. And I think that is interesting. And I don't think I would make it illegal to consume, but I might think that it should be illegal to sell to the public. So if somebody were to make it homemade or something, I don't think that there should be some like
Oh, like
crackdown.
we don't
Um,
we don't do prohibition of soda. You know, they're making Dr. Pepper in their tubs and
right?
speakeasies to drink Mountain Dew. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm not against like. I think it's in the same vein as like veganism, where it's like I don't think that it shouldn't be legal to sell meat. I feel like
Mhm.
that would be the big changeover, where it's like if you had to personally butcher your animals, I think that would
Mhm.
change a lot of people's minds on how much meat they consume.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
And then
But
if we
okay,
just shift that to we eat the food that we feed the cows, then we have even less starving people. Like
yeah. I want to
there's
switch.
so many levels
I
to
want to challenge your stance on the soda thing real quick. What if right now
it.
people were putting it to a vote because some people wanted cigarettes to be an optional thing with food stamps, and it's and without your vote, maybe it's going to go through, and maybe your vote's going to be the tipping point. Um, would you want to stand firmly that U.S. tax dollars should not go towards people getting free cigarettes?
I mean, I personally am like, I find cigarettes abhorrent, but I think that cigarettes not being a food item, I don't think food stamps should go towards cigarettes. But
Mhm.
I think food stamps in itself should be strictly just, food consumable things. I wouldn't like if they were on like what is it called? Is it WIC? What's the one where it's just money in your pocket?
So WIC is the one for mothers that
I'm
get
trying to
like a
remember.
formula and stuff like that. The money in your pocket, I'm not sure, but we can just call it money in your pocket.
Yeah, if the government's just like money in your pocket, spend as you want, I don't think I would restrict that in any capacity. The same way
Mhm.
that when we got stimulus checks, no stipulations on what you spend it on. People will spend it where they spend it.
Well, I
I'm
think
not going to
doing the
say you
stipulation
can't
is
get
kind
cigarettes.
of yeah, I think doing the stipulation is kind of like what you're saying about wanting it not available. So wanting soda not available and wanting like fast food not available or meat to be sold to the public and whatnot. I think when we get closer to things like UBI and when we have things like food stamps, um, it does the thing you're saying where if people decide to go out and get like you were saying that even if you got free food and free shelter, you would still want to have a side job so you could have money to buy things or whatever. I think I
Hmm.
had never thought of it until right now, but I think you've convinced me on accident that the food stamps is kind of a perfect example of that, where if food stamps gets closer to just being a way for people to have uh, health, at least not the most unhealthy options of food in the world, and then they're covered. They're like the government saying, "We're not going to let you starve. You can get these foods, but we're not going to let you get cigarettes. But we're also not going to let you get soda. We're not going to let you get candy bars. All these things." And then those people can decide if they want to go get a side job. They could work at a McDonald's, or they could go work. They could get a really nice job, or what. It doesn't matter what it is. If they decide they want to make a little more money so they can go like, oh, okay, like I really like soda, I want to buy soda, um, then essentially if it gets to the point with like AI and automation that a lot less people are working and most people are getting like the majority of their food or all of their food um, through government plans, then essentially like what you're wanting of there not being soda in stores, if the majority of what people can get would not include that, I guess sure it's a bummer if it exists at the store and then people have to walk past it and they're sad they can't get it on the thing, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's almost essentially of what you're wanting. Like imagine a food stamps where you can't get meat with the food stamps. You can go get you can go get a job and make extra money if you want to get the meat or whatever, or you can butcher it yourself or go hunting, like you were saying. This seems like a step in that direction of what you're wanting.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's like if we are removing things that have been allowed to poison us as a people, focusing on things that have helped humanity grow to where we are now, and then shift the basis of like everyone's taken care of. We don't have starving kids within our borders, but
Mhm.
also providing people avenues for upward mobility. Because if we continue to have no options for higher education at a free level, then we don't have those people that are just like, okay, you're just surviving. You're getting enough food. You're getting enough water. You have a house. But then if you just have menial jobs, yeah, you could get some money. But if they have a program where you can get your 4 year degree while you're just living, and then
Mhm.
you use that 4 year degree to get an undergrad or to get a better job or to expand your horizons beyond what your local area can provide. Like, I think that there's multiple things that we would have to do to make it more equitable for everybody. And if we
Mhm.
then more people in means more hands, more work, more people doing more things, there is going to be a stronger need for that base layer income. But
Mhm.
that also means that we have more people to help create the value that would then provide that. And I think that's where it's like we have so many people out there that could learn and could become those next leaders of innovation, higher education, create the next big app or whatever. Those people just don't have the same access to understanding and knowledge. And I think that's where it's like, again, big net. We get as many people as we can, create the most value as we can, but we're also educating as many people as we can because you could have a master's degree and still work at McDonald's, but
Mhm.
having that master's degree's worth of knowledge gives us yet another person unlocking another lock that could lead us to even better and higher positions. One person
Yeah.
unlocking 100 locks takes forever. 100 people unlocking 100 locks, it's done in a day. Like, I think that's where
Yeah.
it's like more looking more. And I
Yeah.
think that what we're doing now has a level of isolationism, which didn't work out for Japan. Like,
Mm.
Japan and South Korea are dying countries because they're isolationists.
Gotcha. That's not
It's
anything I
that same
know much
mentality.
about. But yeah, that might be something I look into in the future because I don't know too much about it. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's pretty interesting. I definitely like what we've discussed here, and I definitely want to think about it further. Um, and I'm definitely with you on no starving children in the US. Like I don't know if there are many. I would guess that there aren't. I think it's complicated. I think when there are a lot of homeless people, not non-children, that do have the options to go to um I think there are like soup kitchen type places with like cots they can sleep on, but due to various different things like maybe some mental issues and drug and alcohol seeking behaviors and stuff, they don't go to those places. But, I'm not, no expert in any way, but I definitely like the idea of as much as possible to get humans healthy food, all about that. In fact, one thing I hope happens with something like food stamps is having it be where your dollar stretches a lot further if not only you get healthy food like, fresh produce or something, but if you get it locally, like if you have some kind of program where like in Oregon there's um like farms that sell their own stuff kind of like at Saturday markets or
Hmm.
like yeah, anyways, you're probably familiar with a lot of different like farms that sell stuff, that if you purchase that stuff, then for every like normally you'd have like 60 cents, you'd get like a dollar's worth. So you get yeah, anyways, your money just goes further because the idea, I would much rather more tax money of mine go towards people who are choosing fresh produce than getting Pepsi or Coke. So
Oh yeah,
but yeah.
you could do something like double dollar for produce and stuff or something like that. Like we have so many technologies that we can pretty much do whatever we want. Like
Mm,
the only real restriction seems to be the people that are at the top. Like
for sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, and I
what
think it just
is
takes people talking about
Walmart
it.
gets like
What's that?
it's like Walmart gets one out of $4 or something like that of all food stamps goes to Walmart.
Oh,
It's
interesting. Yeah.
the statistics on like how much money of like specific companies that take up like we're basically government subsidizing a quarter of Walmart revenue, and it's just like
Mm.
they would have a good incentive to keep the things the way it is, if not increase it into their areas. Like most rural towns will be closer to a Walmart than a Whole Foods.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't expect it to be a thing where people can like switch over to getting like Whole Foods instead of like food from Walmart or whatever. I guess I would just prefer people getting like, I don't know, canned soup or so anything that's as far away from candy bars or soda as you can imagine. Um but oh,
I
I had a thought and I
some
lost it. Well, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, something else I've noticed is like as someone that was extraordinarily poor in my life in at previous times, like I my grandparents taught me how to cook, how to hunt, and how to like live life on a very low budget in a way that
Mm.
isn't just scraping by and isn't just raviolis for dinner. So I'm like, I know how to cook, I know how to dress a rabbit or even clean a deer if I need to. Like that's information that I have that I can then better my situation even on a couple of dollars. And that's something that like I found that most people that were also poor that I met didn't all have that knowledge. A lot of them knew how to make some things, but they didn't know how to like make a reduction sauce, which is pretty easy to do, or how
Mm.
to make like what they have taste better, or just like spending a couple of dollars on the right spices for the right types of food that you can get. And it
Mm.
felt like it isn't just that the processed foods are easier or that it would just make them feel better by having a little bit more sugar that day versus not, but
Mm.
like the education surrounding that. Like my grandparents are older and have a different mentality, but they also wanted to pass down values and understanding. And not everybody got that, and it became painfully aware. I became painfully aware of just how many people don't know how to do better with what they got. And so I'm like, there's got to be more education. And like, even if it may not be free college, which I would prefer free college for everybody, but like giving people the tools to live better where they're at in the world. And I'm like, what was the weird document that was sent out? A piece of chicken, a tortilla, like it was like some administration thing was like you could have a healthy dinner for under $4 and in several of our simulations. And I'm just like, the fuck are you saying? That's a ridiculous statement. And so I'm like
Gotcha.
thinking in that same sense though, it's like, but then at the same point, I've known so many people that wouldn't know what to do to begin with, let alone what to do with those four ingredients and something else. Like it
Mm.
was such a weird statement, and it felt very tone deaf to what like real people's situations are. And like just a have you ever done those meal prep things where it's like Hello Fresh or anything like that?
I haven't, but I'm familiar with them.
Uh, yeah, it's like it gives you a simple recipe that tastes good and it's pre-portioned amounts, so you just follow the steps and it makes a really good meal for like one, two, three, four people, and it cuts down on food waste because it gives you exactly what you need, nothing more, nothing less. And and like yeah, some of them are a little weird, but out of all the ones I've tried, like most of them taste pretty good.
Mm.
And there's some of the things where I'm like, I wouldn't do it that way, or I would add this and this and this because it's like I want to expand my knowledge in cooking, so I've explored that, but at like a cheap way to give people what they need in a health and stuff and safe way. I feel like something like that replacing like grocery shopping because it's already set up
Mhm.
for you. It's prepackaged in individuals. You just put them in the fridge and you run them through when you're looking to cook. Like
Yeah.
it's
That's a
a
cool
it's a
idea, yeah.
weird it's a weird business model that I never would have thought of. But like if we're looking at ways to somewhat control what people are consuming in a way though that would be less about taking away choices, but more about just providing healthy choices, giving
Mhm.
the illusion of choice while keeping them away from things that would be unhealthy. I think that food stamps mixed with something along those lines would satisfy both of our interests in that way. Like
Yeah.
it's getting us away from candy bars and soda, but it's also giving people nutrients and teaching them a new, like you can learn these recipes pretty easily. And the explanations are simple and direct. And
Mhm.
then some of them increased my interest in foods that I normally wouldn't. And then I end up taking a class and learned how to make banh mi's at home and have like Vietnamese night once a month. And like it,
Mm.
I think that would be a way to make it both more sustainable because we're creating less food waste and focusing on the fresh produce, but also I think that um, it would also create jobs because we'd have like some government version of HelloFresh. And then we'd have people
Gotcha.
working that locally and working with local sources, creating the boxes, shipping them out. It makes it better for everybody involved, I would
Yeah,
assume.
yeah. Yeah, no, I would assume too. Yeah, well, especially because I think it's probably clear that a healthier um, society, as far as healthier people in the society, has got to be better for the society. Like people being healthier would mean that there'd be less when it comes to like healthcare, and yeah. So, anyways, I think I don't know exactly how it'd play out, but it does sound like that would be a good thing, and I think maybe that will be what the future has. Um, yeah, and I think it takes talking about it like this and just people spreading awareness. Because I feel like when it comes to politicians, the idea is that whatever people want the most is the thing that they will put their focus on. So if we are talking about it the most, then they want to get elected, so they do what we want, and then they get elected. So us talking about it's good. Which reminds me of a topic that I had heard recently that I think is that everybody should be shouting from the rooftops for is the idea that for the first 10 years of one's work life, so from either 16 through 26 or 18 through 28, that youngsters don't pay taxes, um, to give them a boost up for saving for buying a house or whatever. And then because we have this thing kind of set up where like youngsters are trying to figure things out, and by the time you're older, the money doesn't matter quite as much. And and so yeah, anyways, just if you yeah, I heard this thing discussed, and I don't know the exact way of how to describe it, but yeah, essentially just making it to where you don't pay taxes for the first 10 years of working, but then your taxes are a bit higher than they normally would be from that point on. And yeah, anyways, I don't know. Is that something you've heard about or have many thoughts on?
I've never heard of that one. That's definitely an interesting take on like creating a new tax bracket, essentially. The having a 10-year gap and then paying more. That's or like whatever, 10% more or 2% more or whatever. That's
Mhm.
definitely interesting. I think
It
that
it feels weird being a person that wouldn't benefit from it, but like being a person having kids and imagining the future, it seems like it's a good choice.
I think I would do something like I like the idea of some sort of break for people that are new to the world. If we
Mhm.
have to continue to live in a capitalist society that's focused around some level of production, I think that if we're still within the world that we live in now, I wouldn't be against that, giving them a leg up. I mean, as someone that also would not be affected by it. But I want better for the next generation, and hopefully they want better for the next after them. Um, though I think about it in the sense of just rechanging taxes and everything, being like if you make less than 50,000 a year, you just don't pay taxes.
Mhm.
So then it's like everybody that's below a certain level will have the best opportunity, every one of their dollars going towards hopefully getting above that level. Or if you just can maintain life at that level, that's great. You have your needs met, you're not starving, you can get to work, you could probably even
Mhm.
go on vacation a couple times. Like you're living a healthy and great life, but you're still producing things and you're still paying taxes on like the things that you buy, the house that you own, but you're
Mhm.
just not paying income tax.
Yeah, yeah. No, that seems reasonable to me. I don't know a lot about taxes, so I wouldn't. There might be things that make that not reasonable, but it seems reasonable to me for sure.
Yeah, I just think that it's like also poor people spend their money, and like 50,000, that's pretty decent in small towns that are still have some connection to, places to buy things, but that means you still need roommates if you live in a major city. Like
Mhm.
50,000 in anything with a population over 500,000 just is it's meeting some needs, but you live with other people. You're not independent in the same way that you could be living in your own house if you lived more rurally.
Mhm.
And even like right now, like I make 56,000 and I still live with somebody else. Like I
Mm.
also live in Portland where things are expensive. And
Yeah.
that's where it's just like if I made as much as I make now living in somewhere rural, or even not even rural, like if I just lived in Albany,
Mhm.
Oregon,
Mhm.
the living costs are so much lower. I wouldn't need to live with somebody to maintain a lifestyle that I currently live. And that's where I'm
Mhm.
like it's and I don't want to just make what I want to make more so I can do more.
Yeah.
But I'm also not starving. I'm not worried about my next meal. I don't have food insecurities, and I don't have concern about like if I get hurt tomorrow or if I have to call out sick for a week. I have money to cover that. I'm not going to lose my job. I have enough saved up that I have a level of protection and privilege in those positions. So I'm like, I think that people below me should have a better chance
Gotcha.
of
Gotcha.
getting,
Yeah. No, and I get that.
yeah. And that's where
Um.
I'm like, people above though, I think the more you make, the more you should get taxed. I think it should be
Mhm.
a linear graph of like, for every dollar more that you make beyond a certain point, it just keeps growing with each one. And that's where I'm like, rich people used to pay a lot in taxes, and then Ronald Reagan, and then
Yeah.
they didn't.
Yeah, I don't have a strong understanding of it. I mean, I believe from my understanding, the top 1% in the US pays over 90% of the taxes in the US. Um, but I don't know if that's because they are taxed at a higher rate or if it's just due to the high amount of income they have. Just
Yeah.
because that's a lot doesn't mean that it shouldn't be more. I just
Yeah.
it's not a topic I know a lot about. But hey, before we run out of time, because I do got to get going here soon, I realized that I distracted the conversation completely away from law enforcement, which is great because I love talking to you about just about anything. But I do want to touch on law enforcement real quick. And
Yeah, of course. Circling back.
yeah, it's gonna be complicated. I just like so here's the thing. Law enforcement is very important. The idea of like we don't want people out there murdering people or raping people or stealing from people.
Mhm.
And so having law enforcement is kind of a must. And then to get people to be law enforcement, you have to make sure that they are protected. I feel like I care like the if you hit just a random stranger, you would get in whatever trouble you'd get in for punching a random stranger. But I feel like you should get in a lot more trouble if you punch a cop. Like I think there's something about the idea of how important this profession is and how risky it can be that there are laws that protect them in a I guess in a more unique way. What are your thoughts on that before we get further into it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I feel like creating our idealized society where people are eating healthy and living good lives would mean that we'd need less police. If everyone had enough to survive, there would be less fighting, less violence. We wouldn't need law enforcement at the same capacity. But I mean, we don't live in that world clearly.
Mhm. Well, no, I'm just
But I,
wondering if you think like so if I went and punched you in the face and then that was like witnessed or whatever and then I was being charged with the crime of punching you in the face versus if a
yeah,
police officer was on duty and they pulled me over because I was drunk driving or whatever and they were trying to make an arrest and I punched that officer in the face. Do you think the punishment for punching you in the face should be different than punching the officer in the face?
I don't think it should be different. I don't think that
Okay.
the incentive of something worse happening because you did something to somebody in a different position than you. Um, I don't think like they're still. I think they should be treated as a person to person. Like
Okay.
it's like the a lot of people punch cops in the face, and the additional rules and laws around them currently don't stop them. And I don't think more people would punch cops in the face if there was less of a punishment, or if the punishment was equal to just punching another person. Because like we do a pretty good job of not punching people in the face already, and
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not doing it because of a possible assault charge. I do it because I don't want to punch people in the face.
Yeah.
And
But
fostering a world where we don't want to punch people in the face, I think would be a better deterrent than increasing punishment for punching cops in the face.
gotcha. But well,
Yeah.
just curious because some people think that that punishments aren't legal punishments aren't a deterrent at all, that people are just going to do what they want to do. Do you recognize punishment as being a deterrent in any way, or do you think it's just not to the degree of changing it for police officers?
I think punishment falls in the same lines as like sin for like Christianity, where it's like if the punishment of going to hell is the only reason why you're not out raping people, then like you're kind of a bad person. So if like the only
Mhm.
reason why you're not raping somebody right now is because you don't want to go to jail, like same sort of thing where it's like
Morally, yeah, like it's
yeah,
ridiculous that somebody would want to do this bad thing, but they're only not going to do it because I'm just like some
yeah,
people like think
that's where
that if you made murder legal, that it wouldn't change the amount of people that are murdering people, and like let's say that you get 5 years in prison for murder. Do you think the murder rate would go up?
I think. Well, this specifically. Do you remember the movies, the Purge movies?
Yeah.
One night a year, everything's legal, but most people choose murder instead of tax fraud for whatever reason.
Mm,
And because I mean, you get more out of tax fraud, but there's the emotional high of like maybe murdering your shitty boss or whatever. But it's like
yeah.
whatever. I would be like falsifying documents and gathering as much resources as I could on purge night. But we all have our dreams. But
Hmm.
I've noticed that so many people have a purge list
Mm.
around the time each one of those movies had been released. I mean, the movies themselves are very like anti-purge and anti-violence and anti the way that leads to purge nights, but like a lot of people seem to watch and be like, hell yeah, that would be sick. Same sort of thing like why do you want to be Patrick Bateman? It's very clear in the movie that he's not doing well. Like, yeah, he has a fancy suit, but he is a mentally ill person, and he is like not someone you should strive for, but like people will see that and be like, hell yeah. So the same sort of thing where I'm like, um, it's weird that I personally don't have a purge list or anything, but I think it's weird that so many people I've talked to do, and that's where the concern comes from. Is like I don't think murder would increase if everyone thought in the same way I did. Like crimes of
Hmm.
passion will still happen, but if it was legal to just go out and shoot somebody, I wouldn't be shooting more people than I already do. Like I shoot as many people as I want to right now as I would if
Right.
it was
Yeah.
legal.
Yeah, same. And I
But
think it goes across the board. Like I think most people don't want to shoot people. And I think that there are obviously
mhm,
people that even if they know that if they get caught and they'll get a life sentence, they're still going to kill people because there's some people that they can't control that like want to kill. But I think there are definitely going to be a lot like if people knew like that they would only get 5 years in prison instead of life in prison,
mhm,
I think the number would skyrocket. I don't know how high. I don't know if it would just be like 1,000 in the US or like if we would see
mhm.
like 50,000. But I think people would be a
Um,
lot less nervous about doing that.
yeah, I definitely have like I mean I would like to believe it wouldn't, but just like the purge list thing, like normal people, my coworkers at jobs that I've had were like, yeah, no, my list is like 10 people deep. And I'm like, that's so weird that you have a hypothetical list of people you would murder in the chance that we might make purge night legally a thing because of based off of a series of movies that specifically suggested that we shouldn't. And I'm like, that's it.
Right.
It's I think it's it's more of a societal issue at that point where I'm like, I would like to believe that it wouldn't, but I feel that a mixture of media and the situations people are currently in and the people that are surrounding them have created this idea of, well, if I could and could get away with it, I probably would sort of mentality. And I think that's where we're failing as a society. Like we shouldn't
Mhm.
be coming together to create murder fantasies. Like
Yeah.
I think that I can't disagree that it wouldn't increase the amount of murders, but I'd want to believe that we'd do better. Or
Mm.
it would be one of those things where someone's doing a lot of killing, so someone that doesn't want to see killing kills the killer.
Mm.
And I think that's
Mhm.
where then we birth the idea of like a level of law. Like then we're circling back to, well, isn't that just basically a cop? Like, yes, there's a lot of corrupt cops that just do whatever they want, and cops. And like, if we want to decrease the amount of domestic abuse, we just make less cops able to get, into relationships. Like, sure, those things exist, but if we want someone to stop all the killers, wouldn't we want someone to have a job designated to stop the killers?
Mhm.
But I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I think a modern cop has too many hats. I think if we have to have cops and we have to have a position of somebody that goes out and stops the killers, then that's all they should do.
Mhm.
They shouldn't be answering calls for domestic violence or noise complaints. I think that
Ooh.
that could be
Wait,
somebody else.
who should be answering the calls for domestic violence?
I think that we need, so this one also comes around to like we need more educated people. where I think that for domestic violence, if we had a someone that was had a mixture of de-escalation skills, but also like an on-the-fly therapist would probably be much more beneficial to those situations. And then
Mm,
from there, if need be, an additional group could be involved because it's like usually if you're getting a call about domestic abuse, we are already too late because then we're reacting to an abuse that has already happened. So
yeah.
to stop domestic abuse, we'd have to do other things as a society to, curb the amount of domestic abuse. But for a domestic abuse call, I think that somebody that's already overworked and looking for killers does not need to show up. I don't think that a person that's specifically looking for people breaking lesser laws needs to show up. Like if you're
Yeah,
looking
I
for people
mean,
that are speeding, if you're a detective looking for murders, or if you're trying to stop people from, you know, escalating situations with a gun, I don't think those people need to show up to a couple yelling at each other on a balcony, harassing their local neighbors with the level of
mm,
argument. Like
yeah. Well,
I think
I
that
mean,
just a different professional would be needed.
what comes to mind is so usually domestic violence would be male on female, and males can be strong, and I don't know what the statistics are, but I would guess that the ones that are committing domestic violent crimes are probably stronger, and so it it might take somebody who is designed to have to have a physical encounter with a strong person to handle
Mhm.
a domestic violence situation. I know that there are a handful of domestic violence situations where a police officer shows up and they open the door, and then the man that was doing the domestic violence will shoot and execute the police officer. I mean, I think I just know of a couple somewhat recent cases, and so I don't know how common that is. But I
Mhm.
guess the idea of having a therapist, my concern is who's going to protect the therapist. And so, what do you think of the idea of if you just had people that had their like you have a police station, you have let's say there's 50 people that work there, and 10 of them are cops that specifically do like traffic stuff, and then 10 of them are specifically domestic violence, and then 10 of them are specifically mental illness cases, and 10 of them are specifically ones that are out solving murder and related crimes, like to where those individual groups are trained in different ways, and like one group might be trained in de-escalation where the other group might be trained in detective work. um is that more of what you mean, that we just need to train them in various different things, or do you mean to not have the person that has a taser and a gun on them be there when there's a domestic violence situation?
Yeah, I mean, like in those situations where the domestic abuser has killed cops, and I think I remember something like that recently. But anecdotally, they would have shot and killed the therapist as well. It doesn't matter if you have a gun or not in those situations. So, like, a cop died or a therapist died. But I think more in the sense of like, if we, that's not the majority of cases. And I definitely want to like continue pushing this like wide net theory. There will always be edge cases and there will always be bad situations. But
Mm.
if that's the minority, that's where I want to keep them as like the small percentage. I don't want that to be the rule for everybody. Where I'm
Yeah,
like, if we
fair.
can,
I
yeah,
just wonder, like, if you switched it up and you had a therapist, and I don't know who else, if there's a therapist bodyguard, but let's just say you have a therapist show up. How many harmful encounters to therapists would it take to change it to, okay, let's scratch this. Therapist shouldn't show up to a human who is willingly going to be hurting another human.
I think of that in the same sense as like how often EMTs get attacked and they don't have guns. Like they're literally there just to help and do their best. And if someone has a gun and starts shooting, they call for the people with guns to show up. And I think of therapists that would be, or whatever the type of person that would be showing up to those things in the same sense as an EMT. Like an
Wait,
EMT isn't showing up to
why are EMTs getting hurt?
EMTs get hurt all the time. Like
Really? Okay.
EMTs show up to some of the most dangerous situations alongside cops in some cases, but sometimes before them to help people in need. And it can be anything from someone in that's injured but is still, flailing around. And some of them have knives, some of them have guns. Sometimes they show up to situations where someone's hurt, but they got hurt by somebody, and then that somebody might still be trying to hurt other people. And sometimes that's EMTs.
Hmm.
Like every EMT has a horrifying story of like situations they were in where they possibly could have gotten injured, or they get punctured by a needle, or they get some sort of level of contusion from the people they're trying to help. And none of them are out there with a gun on their hip or even a taser. Like it's the
Yeah.
same sort of thing. Just have a
Well,
person that fills that similar role.
I think it just
They
comes
call
down
in
to what
for
they're being called
someone.
in for. So, like, they wouldn't,
Yeah.
EMTs, for the most part, they are showing up when somebody needs to be put in an ambulance to be taken to the hospital who's already hurt, or to have their vitals
Mhm.
checked, or, various different situations, car wrecks and different things like that. But that what they're there for, that there might be edge cases of there being a violent person that's being violent, but they're not called there for the violent person. So the EMT doesn't need the protection on them, which, I mean, arguably, if they are trained to and want to have a weapon on them because of statistics of being hurt, I'd probably be fine with that. But the difference with an officer is, if an officer's called to, like, if there's a specific officer that's just called to car wrecks only, you might not need a gun on that officer, because that's not what they're for. They're for a car wreck to work up paperwork and figure out what happened. But if they're called to a domestic violence situation, I guess I guess I'm just saying, no matter what you want to call them and what you have them trained for, if a human is
Mhm.
hired to be called to take care of a domestic or of any violent situation, then they need to be capable of protecting themselves while risking their lives, um, stopping violence.
I can think that in the same sense of like being called in for situations. I think if going in supposing that you're going to be in a life and death struggle, that would change your mentality entering that situation. And I think that if someone called in saying two people are arguing next door, they're loud belligerents, this is a couple, sending in someone without a gun with the mentality of trying to de-escalate the situation because that's the tools that they have, I think that would be more useful. And then having somebody with a firearm that could protect those that don't on standby.
What do you
That would
think the
be,
downside is to having the gun? Like, so say you have a therapist. Let's just say it's like a 60-year-old lady, the nicest, sweetest old lady in the world. She doesn't have many muscles on her. She doesn't look like a threat in any way. She knows how to use a gun and she has it on her hip. And if in a worst case scenario, she could use it if she needed to. But w- is your claim that if the people that are being checked up on, if they see a gun, that's going to lead to negative outcomes?
I mean, for me personally, seeing a gun suggests that there's a chance the gun can be used. And in a
Okay,
heightened
that's fair.
situation that's emotional, amplify that feeling. And I've
Mm,
grown up around guns, personally carry a gun. I lots of gun safety. I'm more aware of my firearm than like a lot of the people that are around me. But I also don't open carry. I'm not trying to project the fact that I have a gun to
mhm.
other people. And whenever I see an open carry firearm, I take notice of who it is, how they're acting, and mentally prepare for the chance that that gun might be being used. And since I don't know that person, they might be using it against me, or they might be using it against people I'm with. And then the idea that the person with the gun could have views and stances that might lead to other people being injured because of how they perceive that person to be leads to a whole cascading thoughts of, is this person this piece of shit, and is this the day that they're going to go to the edge and start shooting people? Is this person going to be the good guy with the gun, or is he waiting to be the bad guy with the gun? Or is this all stance so that he's hoping either someone tries them so he has a chance to use it, or is it something to project power so that no one steps to him in any capacity? Or is it a way to tell everyone, don't worry, I'm here to protect everybody? Like, none of that's projected by just seeing a gun. It just creates a lot of ways you could perceive it. But a 60-year-old woman with a gun on her hip, I mean, to me, it's like either it's cosplay, or that is Annie Oakley in her later years of life, ready to let one rip. And neither of them make me feel more confident in a therapist's abilities. Like, my
Mm.
therapist, if she had a gun in any of our situations, I'd be a little confused.
Yeah, I only
I
mentioned that
wouldn't
because
I
I was
wouldn't
trying
find
to
it as helpful.
test. I was just trying to test what you meant by like your concern of there being a gun there. But yeah, I'm with you. There probably are some
Yeah.
cases that make sense. The problem is there are a lot of different types of people, and a lot of them have different types of violence. And I don't know what the percentages are. If like if like 90% of domestic violence calls um were just harmless people, um like maybe I just it's yeah, it's really tricky, it's really complicated. I guess a lot of this is going to come down to stats. I know that there are some issues, there are bad cops. Luckily with body cams, we have a better setup now than we ever have. And so I don't know how I would look at this without cams, but with body cams, I don't think we have too much to worry about. Now, one problem is like a selection bias because I watch a lot of police interaction stuff. And there's like maybe 5% of it is stuff showing bad cops, and then the bad cops usually get in trouble, and it is what it is. But most of it's, cops that are just you know, doing their thing. And it seems like bad people harm cops a lot more than cops harm innocent people. And yeah, anyways, it's just complicated. Obviously, I'm glad that there are less lethal options for cases where if you can shoot somebody with like one of the beanbag shotgun type things or shoot your taser, then you have these options to stop violent people without them dying. I'm all about less people dying. That being said, like if somebody's charging at a cop or somebody else with a knife or a gun or whatever, then them being shot makes sense. So I'm just I don't know. I just think it's complicated. I think the idea of having somebody that isn't a hired human with um, a gun show up to domestic violence calls, it just seems like it's a
Mhm.
recipe for disaster. It could be interesting to try it out and like pick one state or one city or something and be like, okay, let's see if any therapists would be willing to be hired on by the police station to show up to domestic calls. But then what happens? Like if let's say that a woman was just had her face beat in by her boyfriend or whatever, and she calls, like in domestic violence calls, I believe in most cases somebody gets arrested because it's domestic violence is like there's especially in the past couple of years there's a big crackdown on even if the partner says I don't want him arrested, I would just called because I was scared and whatever. um But like, if there's proof that they did this thing, it doesn't even matter if the person wants to press charges or not, they get arrested. So would it be a therapist and then a person that has handcuffs and just doesn't have a gun? And then what happens if they don't want to be arrested?
I mean, looking at the statistics, it's like less than 1/3 result in arrests.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's like 28.8%.
Less than a third of what's found to be actual physical domestic violence, or less than a third of the calls because of a percentage of people lying?
Less than a third of domestic violence reports. So
Okay.
ones filed by police.
I'd be
And
curious to
I
see
mean,
what percentage, because you know what I mean? Like if somebody says like this thing happened, the cops show up, and then there's essentially no evidence, there's no marks, no whatever, and then they don't do it. I guess it's just I'd agree with you that there's like that makes sense that somebody might call and say a thing and cops show up and then the cops go home. um, I guess my concern would be the other part of it. The what happens if you have a set type of officer that's essentially a therapist bodyguard, and then the therapist is there to see if they can work things out between the couple. But if there
mhm.
was let's just say if there is physical violence, would you say that if there was physical violence, it's caught on the wife's cell phone that the dude punched her in the face, or let's just say anything physical, would you say that an arrest should be made?
I would say that if there is the crime of assault and battery, that there should be an arrest. Though statistics show like 37% of aggravated assault and battery charges are arrests at domestic violence reports. Like it turns out it's about a 1/3, a little over a third of even the most extreme situations actually result in arrests.
Okay. And so the
And
ones that would result
that's
in
where I'm
arrest,
just like, yeah, that's where it's one of those like, would the having the police as they are currently doesn't increase the arrests, even in the average aggravated assault situations. But I think that that's where it's like they call in for a person to come do the arresting if there is that
Mhm.
level of violence involved. I could agree
Okay.
with that.
Okay,
But I
so
mean,
let's talk
statistically
about
speaking, they already aren't arresting enough of those people.
yeah, and so we might agree that they should arrest more if they are doing being violent. We probably would also agree that there should be um some sort of a protocol on how to view somebody as somebody that has committed violence. Like for example, it's just complicated,
Mhm.
but if somebody calls and says this thing happened, there's no footage, there's no markings at all on the person. The person that claims and it doesn't matter the gender, it doesn't matter the sexual orientation, any of that stuff, but just a person calls and says this thing happens, the police show up, there's no markings on the person at all. The other person's like, I don't know what he's talking about. He says I hit him and I didn't hit him. Um, like, do you have a take on what a protocol should look like as far as arrests of this kind of violence?
Yeah, I'm of the mindset of we should believe them first, yes, and then do a thorough investigation. Because
Okay,
I
so
feel
would the
that
arrest take place in
it's,
that moment?
I think that, yeah, I think that should
Okay,
be a thing. But
okay,
I think that there should also be repercussions for falsely doing that. Because it's like an arrest can be detrimental to the person being arrested. And
yeah,
that if you're providing false information, it shouldn't just be a, oh, well, oopsie doodle, let them go. And
right,
then I think
yeah,
that there
and
should be like, well, what's the punitive thing for having someone arrested that nothing was brought against them?
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, and it's complicated, and I don't necessarily agree with you, but I think I want to agree with you for the sake of conversation. So let's say that I agree with you. If there's a claim of physical violence, then arrest can be made, and then they could look into it later. Again, I don't agree with that, but let's say I do. So
Mhm,
I guess what I'm saying is, anytime there's a phone call, a 911 call, and they say
mhm.
um, somebody was physically violent with me. Um, the the person either the person or one of the people that shows up needs to have two things: handcuffs and a gun, right?
I think in that situation, that would be if there is a call of violence, I could agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. And so the cases where maybe it should be a therapist or more so a differently trained officer, um, an officer that's trained in mental health understanding and de-escalation, all that kind of stuff. Those people should maybe be
Mhm.
called for something where somebody is clearly like schizophrenic and like out of their mind, rambling about stuff. Maybe somebody in a store that isn't physically harming a person, but they're throwing all the products all over the ground or something. Um, Even then, it's hard to know because they're being physical, and you might need a specifically strong and armed officer. But I'm trying to think of cases where I would agree with you that you could have a different type of person show up. And I think it would need to be any cases where something wrong is happening that isn't violent. Does that sound about right?
I think of have you ever worked like private security?
No, but I'm familiar with. Do you mean like if there's like a security person walking the parking lot of Target or something like that?
Yeah. There is essentially you have like the armed and unarmed security,
Okay.
and you don't hire um, like to have a good unarmed security guard. You're not really hiring people that can't handle being an unarmed security guard.
Mm.
So I would imagine if you're hiring an unarmed therapist, you wouldn't be hiring, the most frail individuals. You would be hiring people that could handle that sort of like you don't have incompetent EMTs, you don't have firefighters that can't, haul rope or
Mm.
move, break down doors. In the same situation, I don't think you would have people that couldn't handle being unarmed in those situations. They would
Hmm.
be, de-escalation, sure, knowledge and understanding of like people's body movements, mental health, all those things, but also would know when a situation is going from I can handle this to I need to call someone with a gun. And that's where I think the
Mm.
thing would be is if a situation calls, because we live in a world where firearms are readily available and it's pretty easy to acquire a firearm with the right motivation, just about anyone can get strapped up.
Hmm.
But I think that having people that understand those situations, have a better understanding of those like people that would be in those situations, and could also clearly identify when a threat is beyond their abilities. So when someone needs to be arrested, or when someone needs to be there with a firearm to fight off whoever has a firearm, I think those situations are all like things that could be handled by somebody that unarmed security guards do it every single day. Like it
Yeah.
could be a person just with more than, more training than them that could still fill those roles. But I think that giving somebody that has a firearm that role plus traffic cop plus, stop the bad guy, follow up on leads, plus door knocking for missing children, plus is putting too
Yeah.
much onto one individual. And I think separating out the hats is really where we would find better success, lower rates of people dying, higher rates of people being helped.
Yeah. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I like I like to be open-minded, and I think it's definitely reasonable to test it. It's very, very possible. Like if I imagine like half the police officers right now were to not have their guns, and then the other half have their guns, and then you send the ones that you're sending the no guns to are going to be cases that statistically will be less likely to need guns. I don't know how
Mhm.
many cases it would take where if you show up to a case that you think is going to be just a mental health situation, and you think a trained mental health person that also is a strong security guard type person but does not have a gun. I don't know how many times it's going to take a mentally ill person pulling a knife on them and them essentially having to say, okay, never mind, go on your way. Because I mean, they shouldn't have to risk their lives detaining somebody with a knife if they don't have the proper ability to. So they would have to let that person go, and then an officer with a gun would have to track that person down if they have their address and they had their name on file and stuff. I do think that if we tried that out tomorrow, it might be perfectly fine. My prediction is that we would realize, hey, we might as well have all of these officers that don't have guns. We might as well have them have guns, because statistically, they're going to be more likely to solve the problem and less likely for the statistics on people dying by cop is just so small. But also in the hypothetical, we could just view it as, depending on how many more lives are saved or not saved, would change the outcome. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm just my concern is that in almost all cases with officers, a gun is probably good. I would guess that 99% of traffic stops do not need a gun. It's somebody just getting a ticket for speeding or whatever.
Mhm.
Yet there are tons of cases of the officer walks up to the window, the windows are tinted, the person rolls the window down, shoots the officer dead right there. And again, it's more of the outlier, but it happens, and that's why it's good to have
Yeah.
their
Well,
protocol and stuff.
their gun didn't save them in that situation though.
No, true. But then you have the in between cases where you have, like, so most people getting pulled over for a traffic violation are just going to take the ticket and go. But the ones that have warrants for their arrest or whatever, they're going to pull their gun out. They're going to do this thing. There's going to be a wrestle with the cop. And they're going to, in most cases like that, where it's like drug dealers or whatever that got pulled over for speeding, the cop with the gun and the taser are going to be able to take that person down, and in some cases they'll die and it'll be reasonable, and in some cases they'll just get arrested, and that's good too. But I've seen so many cases where if the officer didn't have a gun or a backup partner with a gun, then they easily would have been taken over, or the person just would have fled, because there's nothing you can do if somebody has a gun or a knife and you don't have something to make you have the upper or equal hand. So yeah, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just
I mean, there's
it's
also
risky.
several
Yeah.
cases. Well, there's several cases too where the officers lose their firearm to an unarmed person and then end up dying, like especially around traffic stops.
Wait, sorry. Say that
Like it's
one more time.
officers having their firearm removed from them and then being killed with their own guns in traffic
Oh
stops.
yeah, I think I've seen that
Like
once
you're
or
adding
twice.
an addition. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's still adding an additional level of creating a deadly situation. But
Yeah.
also, it could be as easy as unarmed person versus just two unarmed people. Like that usually, if you're trained in how to fight people, two people knowing how to fight people versus a person that doesn't know how to fight people loses
Mhm.
every time.
Yeah, but
Two people that know how to
it
fight
could go
people
either
versus one person.
direction. So like
If it's
one unarmed.
1v1,
Well, I just
maybe,
mean if
but
it's
like,
one unarmed cop versus two unarmed criminals, the two criminals will win. And if it's two unarmed cops
yeah.
versus one unarmed criminal, then the cops will win. And so that's a risk I don't think the people should have to take, the people that are there to enforce the law. But I don't want to say that blanketly, because if it worked out, if there were resources enough to have certain um, law enforcement that just didn't need guns, and that's totally fine. I guess I just always imagine a gun is better than not a gun. Um, when it comes to anything that could be law enforcement. So anybody that has the ability to enforce the law. I'm just trying to imagine. I'm even picturing like if meter maids were considered part of law enforcement or whatever. It's like they're probably going to achieve more if they have a gun. So yeah, I don't know. I just
Well, I mean, there's so many countries that already have police forces that don't regularly carry firearms, and
mhm.
they handle their situations just fine. Like, they don't have higher rates of cops dying because they don't have firearms.
Interesting. Yeah. And I would like to look into that. And it is complicated
Like,
because every
we have
country
big,
will be,
yeah,
yeah. I was going to say every country will be
yeah, like,
different based
yeah, we
off
have whole, like,
culture and all that. Yeah.
yeah. I think we're special because we have so many guns. It's something. What was the statistic for like guns versus people in America is wild. But
Yeah.
like, um, what was it? Uh, I mean, Google says like 4 to 500 million guns in America,
Yeah.
and that's like we have a population of 330 million people, so more guns than people. But I think that's where it's like we have extra levels of issues because we also have extra ways to be deadly to one another. But I don't think that it's enough to make the necessity of guns. I
Yeah.
think
Huh.
I think it falls within the like good guy with a gun will stop a bad guy with a gun, but more often than not we see a lot of news stories of a bunch of good guys with guns not stopping a bad guy with a gun.
Mm.
Like every
Gotcha.
school shooting seems to end with more dead bodies for the shooter than the cops, or the idea that we have the capacity of killing more people because we have more firearms and more availability. But I think that kind of circles into like gun ownership, which I have thoughts on. But
Hmm.
I think that more often than not, we have more people that aren't going to be using their guns to harm cops in traffic stops and whatnot. And I think that's where it's like traffic stops. I don't think that a officer would really need a gun as much, and I don't think people would shoot cops at traffic stops if they had guns. The people that want to shoot cops, I don't think that would be the moment they would choose to do so. But they're shooting the cop because they know the cop has a gun and would shoot them if they were a bad person or they're trying to get away with some sort. Like cars full of drugs can't get stopped. I'm going to shoot this cop and drive away. Like if the cop
Mm.
didn't have a gun, they would just leave. They wouldn't stop, and then they would, continue on their way, and we'd have one less dead cop, and the cop could then put in pursuit of a car that didn't stop, calling in backup, getting additional people there to help.
Yeah. 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 It's a lot to think about. It's definitely complicated. I don't think there's an easy answer. I think a lot of people like to think they have the answer. And I think, yeah,
The
I think it's
the
complicated.
the ideal situation where everything works exactly as I say in magical dream Christmas land, where all
Right.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
statistics and everything help me succeed.
Yeah, and I didn't
Yeah.
mean you specifically. If anything, I meant myself. I like to always recognize that even what I think is the right answer isn't always. But yeah, but I did realize the time, and I do got to hop off here. But as always, it was great talking.
Yeah, of course. And can't wait to see it back on your favorite streaming platforms.
Yep, yep. Sounds good. All right, take care, my friend.
All right, you too.